Hello everybody, welcome to Quality in Healthcare. Again, I'm Mark Evans, your instructor, and I want to welcome you to week 2 of our class. First week we seem to get kicked off very well with some good discussions on our perception of quality in the healthcare industry. I think you brought up a lot of good ideas, a lot of good suggestions. There were a lot of practical examples that you used that really made the subject come alive, so I want to congratulate you on your participation this week, and I think you did a really good job getting kicked off for the week 1. Week 1 usually is the hardest because you're usually trying to chase down your textbooks and get signed up for the classes and all of that, but it looked like everybody did pretty good. We also have the new Canvas learning system. It looks like everybody's doing okay there. If you do have questions, please let me know. Don't sit out there getting frustrated. Let us know if you're having some kind of problems that we can try to help. This week we're going to delve into some of the specifics of quality now. One of the first things that we're going to talk about is variation. Variation is exactly what you might term it to be. There is nothing in nature or in business, healthcare, or anything that's the same all the time. There is always some kind of variation. Usually we call variation, and we talk about variation in terms of averages. We may talk about ranges. We may talk about mins and maxes and medians and some of those kind of terms. But variation can be a quality problem. For an example, we may say the average wait time in an emergency room is 20 minutes. Well, when we think about variation, you look, if the average is 20 minutes, it could be the wait time could actually go anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. Now, we may think 30-minute wait in an emergency room is good, so I'm not saying that those times are good or bad, but I'm trying to demonstrate variation. So an average in and of itself is not necessarily a good quality number, because there's going to be, as you can imagine, an equal number of experiences on the low side, an equal number of experiences on the high side. So averages kind of give you a general idea, if you will, in terms of how we're doing, but we really need to look at the overall variation in things when we want to know what quality is really like. In the business world, when we look at variation, we talk about sigma. Sigma is the Greek symbol for variation, if you will. And we've heard the terms, and maybe you've heard the terms of Six Sigma. And Six Sigma basically represents a typical bell curve with 99.7% of all the population fitting inside that bell curve. The variation then can be expressed by how far is it from one end of the bell curve all the way over to the other end of the bell curve, if you think about it. So that kind of gives you an idea that variation could be very wide, and so you could have a very wide level of experience, if you will, for your patients or your customers or what have you. And that could be a problem, because you could be looking at averages, or you could be looking at just a few measurements of wait time or service or what have you, and think you're doing good, but variation really mess up your overall quality. So we'll talk a little bit about that this week. It's not as complicated probably as you think it is. We're not going to get into any heavy-duty statistics in this class, but those are some of the things that you learn in one of the quality movements that came out after World War II called Six Sigma. Motorola is known for mastering the Six Sigma quality methods, and they improve quality by doing exactly what we're talking about, reducing variation, and doing it so it gives you such a good consistency, if you will, of service, experience of a product, or what have you. So Six Sigma is one of the things you're going to be seeing in your textbook as we talk about variation. Another quality philosophy that you'll hear about in the textbook, and actually is making pretty good inroads in the healthcare industry these days, is lean management principles. Lean management principles came out again right after World War II. They actually started with the Toyota Motor Company, if you think about it. Toyota has become the biggest and most profitable automobile company in the world, and people look at them and try to emulate what they do. And from that came the Toyota production model, or some folks call it the Toyota Way. And when the Japanese automobile industry started putting a whipping on the American automobile industry, professors from MIT and other places went to Japan to study how they did what they did, and they coined the word lean to talk about how the Japanese did what they do. Well, lean in its purest sense suggests that we look at what does a customer value, what are they willing to pay for, what do they value, and anything else that we do is a waste. So if a customer's not willing to value it or pay for it or think it's important, it should be done away with. Now this reduces cost, it reduces waste, and it ends up improving quality, customer service, and so forth. There's a whole lot to talk about there that we'll talk about over the next 8 or 9 weeks actually. But lean tries to improve quality by reducing waste. Six Sigma tries to improve quality by reducing variation. They can be done together, or they could be done mutually exclusive of one another. So that's two major philosophies that came out right after World War II. Another one, total quality management movement that came out. It's kind of a mix of all three if you think about it, by Schuhart and Juran and those guys that you'll read about in your textbook. And one of the things that they talked about in terms of total quality movement is the voice of the customer. Again, what does the customer want? What does the customer need? And that the customer should drive that process in terms of defining quality. A couple of things that come out of that is called quality control versus quality assurance. Quality control, you could kind of say that's kind of like you make a product, I'm the quality manager, and I try to catch you making bad products. So your job is simply to make as much as you can possibly make. My job is to inspect it and catch as much stuff as I can catch. When the total quality movement came along, what we basically tried to say is that quality is everybody's job. Everybody's responsible for quality, not just the quality people, if you will. Now, we take that principle and put it into the healthcare system. What we're basically saying is every single person that patient comes into contact with is responsible for that person to have a quality experience with the hospital or with the office or what have you. That it's not just the doctor, it's not just the nurse, it's not just the administrative person. Every person adds to the quality experience that person has when they visit your healthcare facility. So that's the kind of things that we're going to be talking about this week in our discussions and in your questions and that kind of thing. I look forward to talking with you and hearing what you have to say about all of it. A lot of this stuff is things that I do every day, so if you have questions, please let me know. I'll see you in class.